Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, your home for all content Lord of the Rings home. I'm finally releasing the Rivendell deep dive video. I originally planned to get this out last Tuesday, right, the day before the event. Things have taken a little bit of a turn and it has been delayed, but this is going to be out before the end of the Elrond event, so I consider it not the worst case scenario. But this is basically a video for all of the people who just got Elrond. And we're going to go through a lot. I'm going to talk about build priority and level priority. I mean, that's basically the same thing. And then we're going to talk about skill priority and what skills you should be maxing. That's what this infographic here is. We're going to go through some arena footage, probably just one arena fight, but I want to talk about the variation in comps you see. I'm going to focus specifically on what mirror matches look like, because I think if you just got Elrond this time around, that's probably what your arena is going to look like for the foreseeable future, I feel like. So it's good to have the lay of the land when it comes to that. And then we're just going to go chapter by chapter in the raid and talk about how the elves do in the raid in that particular chapter, what are some good substitutions for certain members, and what the strategy is, and how you can get sort of max points, because they are the best raid team overall. So we're going to go chapter by chapter and do that. So that's why it's going to be a long video, but I'm going to put timestamps in the description below to help with that. So that way you can, oh, I just need to figure out how to do this for chapter 3. You can just click on that right away, right? So let's just get right into it. Basically, the build and level priority for the Rivendell elves, I would say, goes Elrond, Elladan, Elrohir. Elladan and Elrohir are kind of tied, but I prefer to get Elladan up first just because it gives you a little bit more survivability. Arwen, Lomian. It's basically the same one I have here. So I recommend you max these three out first, right? Trying to get this core trio here maxed is a good idea. Don't sleep on Arwen, though. Arwen adds a lot of good stuff to the team, especially in the raids. She doesn't necessarily see as much play in top-end arena. That's okay. I use her in my arena team. I think she adds a lot of viability across the board. She's a really good character and necessary for some chapters in the raid. So, levels and gear, that's who you should prioritize. It also turns out that's who you should prioritize for skills as well. So to be clear, this infographic is for which skills you should max first. I'm going to recommend you get pretty much everything to 4s across the board. But when you're thinking about, you know, those like 200 purple ability map upgrades, what do you want to do first? Again, I'm going to recommend that you go Elrond first, probably Elladan, but you can kind of switch things up down on this area right here. And then I've put Lomian in sort of medium to low priority because that is the correct priority. You shouldn't worry about him until you have all of this, definitely all of this stuff maxed out. So these are skills for Elrond that you need to max out first. They're in a little bit of particular order, whereas the things to the left mean you should probably max them first, but there's a little bit of play here that you can kind of do, right? So getting max Special 2 for Elrond gives him that +1 slow duration. That is critical. Vilya's Light, that's his Special 1, right? That gives you the extra stamina if you didn't revive somebody. That's also pretty great because it basically puts his heal on a way shorter cooldown. Like, it's not way short, it's 1 stamina cooler, but it's a substantial difference. And then I have the leadership ability in here, which if you're free to play, you probably don't have access to. You can't max that out. But luckily, if they add a way to get that in, or you do have some mats, it's not too many purple ability mats. It's just epic ability mats that you have to worry about here. But definitely going to recommend this because it gives you that +1 duration to it's +1 boon that gets the duration. So it's up to 2. And then there's some other good stuff. His basic when maxed, I think it's what gives you an extra regeneration. Let's just go here. +1 regeneration duration. This just gives you survivability. All of the Rivendell kits basically work based on how many boons they have going at this time. So anything like this, duration extension of boons, is just going to be good and add to your overall capability of the team. And then his passive is okay. Like this will take it from 5% to 7% max health every turn. That's pretty good. And then always grant counterattack is also very good, but I guess it's not very good. It's fine. It's a medium ability. That's why I put it there, right? Okay, let's go back to Photoshop here. For Elodin, the skills to max are going to be his helicopter move, his special 2, right? Because this adds essentially the extra stamina you need to... Okay, I have very few buffs on Elodin, but I can still get stamina to get his helicopter ability to be there next turn, which is what you need because you always want his provoke up, essentially. And then this, maxing out his passive, that last level of his passive gives him just like plus 10% chance to gain the nimble. The nimble is actually really important for Elodin's defensive capabilities because he is tunneling so much of the damage to him. Normally in the raids, you kind of either want to have 2 tanks or you want to have a lot more kind of cleansing or survivability, or somebody can off tank or something like that, right? Some other defensive capabilities. You don't really need that with Rivendell because Elodin gets that nimble 70% of the time with a maxed passive. I put his special 1 in medium category. I do think this is useful because once you max it out, it grants deadly to 2 other allies besides him, and that can really increase the amount of damage you get, and it's useful in chapters of the raid. I actually don't even have his basic maxed on my main account. It's fine. Let's talk about Elra here. Passive. Got to max it out because that means it's a 100% chance to retaliate. That's where a lot of your damage is going to come from. In pretty much every game mode is doing that, right? I think this is more important than the basic, and I put the basic in medium because it's important, and this probably has a good chance to be in high, but I wanted to make sure that you do these 2 first because his special what is that? His special 1. This maxed out gives the 2-turn expose, and I think that is really important because this ability is crazy, right? He gives himself might, and it's a 2-turn expose. So if you do this into an enemy, they don't clear off the expose, then you can set up his special 2, which is crazy when he's with Elodin, the amount of damage it does. Armor, it ignores armor, and it just does a ton of damage. Plus he has might, plus they have expose, and so this is a really great combo. But I am going to say, and then I think people might get mad and say, you should put this in high. His retaliate damage does scale off of his basic. So the higher you have his basic, the more his retaliate damage is going to hurt. I think it's basically like 1 level below what you have the basic at is kind of what the damage for the out of turn attacks will be. These are the main 3, but Arwen's also great. This is her special 2. And on max, let's see here. I guess maybe max is not... you want it to at least level 5. Just reducing the stamina here is really, really important for Arena and for the raids. Getting out this immunity is really critical for Chapter 3 of the raid, but also being able to have this on a 4-turn cooldown does mean that you can get rid of any slows that Skull Crushers apply. Plus, the Balrog fight, lots of Banes, right? The more often you get this out, the better. It's being able to cleanse all that. So maybe you can leave this one at 5. Granting the additional stack of regeneration is nice, but not necessary. But this is definitely level 5. And then I actually love this ability. Her special 1 is very underrated, I feel like. I would recommend maxing this one out, this plus 10% turn meter per boon on self to kind of cap it out at 20% turn meter, and then an additional 20% per boon on self. This is half of that extra piece right there. So you only need 4 boons, and then she can go again. So what I like to do is, essentially, when I'm in an arena fight, I will clear the... I can clear Unbreakables off of Elrond. I can clear multiple stacks of Provoke off of Elodin. I clear the Might off of Elra here right at the start of the battle. It's terrific. It's really good. This can clear counterattacks from the Cave Troll, from the Balrog. Can clear Unbreakables from any of the orcs. It's really good because if you time it right, then you can get another turn basically for free. And if she has her special 1 up, that's great. But if she used her, special 2 up, that's great. But if she used her special 2, then you're kind of also just re-lowering her special 2 ability by another cooldown because you're taking like essentially a bonus turn. So don't sleep on Deadly Earnest. It's a good ability. And this last level here is pretty key. I guess you can just leave this at 5. So maybe this is a little bit incorrect in my order here, but I'm going to keep it like that. Maybe I could switch these 2. Her passive, also pretty good though. It's fine. So you can have a chance to cleanse a Bane. This is important in the raid, I would say, mostly. I think you have a lot more control when you're doing arena and you're not so worried about the spread of Banes as much as you are in the raid. But this is, again, it's a medium skill to kind of include. And then her basic is actually pretty decent as well, and something you should consider getting to level 6 when you're thinking about maxing the team out. Granting defensive is actually can be pretty tactical for different parts of the raid, I would say. Chapter 3, it's pretty good for that. But even she can, she gives it to herself, right? Because she can be the most wounded squad member here. If she gives it to herself, she's giving herself another boon that she could then use to maybe get to, she gives herself defensive. That's another boon. Maybe she had 3, now she has 4. Either way, she gets extra turn meter based on that if she uses her special 1 next turn. Plus, it's just more defensive options for her. The defensive, I found, I was very hesitant about taking her basic to level 6. I was like, do we really need the defensive all the time? It made a big difference on my team eventually down the line. When you're kind of facing off against teams that are very similarly maxed out Rivendell teams, especially in Arena, I thought it made a difference. I think it makes a difference in raids as well. Okay, so let's talk about Lomian. He's just not that useful anymore. I think if you already have him built, he has a place. And you can use him in Chapter 2 of the raid. You could use him kind of under a Legolas lead for a cleanup elves team. I think that's fine. I think he's got his uses. But for 3 chapters of the raid, I don't use him. And you could argue I shouldn't use him with my Rivendell team in Chapter 2 either. The place I do use him, we'll talk about that when we get there. I don't see him in Arena. I will target teams that use Lomian in their Arena team because that is an easier win to me. So, if we're Lomian, I'm sorry, bud, but if we're being honest here, let's take the lid off the trash can. And we gotta stick you in there. Let's get the lid back. Okay. There you go. There you go. Let's make you look like Oscar the Grouch. This reminds me, there's this song that I love from an artist called FKJ that for the longest time I used to think it said, the lyrics were literally just, please throw me in the trash. Anyway.
I'm begging you, please take me in your arms.
Anyway, that's what this reminded me of. He's garbage. He's bad. As soon as Rummel and Orphan become farmable, no reason to have Lomian. As Torm says, Orphan is just a better Lomian. And I mostly agree with that. I do think his special one here, with the ability to increase his crit chance based on how many boons he has, is pretty cool and great in the Chapter 2 of the raid. I just find it doesn't work as well as I would like it to. Giving himself nimble, also great. Giving himself might on basic is also good. It's just, he just doesn't do it that well compared to everybody else. So that's why he's on the medium to low tier. If you want to still build him, I think that's fine, just to have a complete sort of squad. Totally fine, but I do think his viability is pretty much phased out, especially with the introduction of the 2 elves, the 2 Sylvan brothers from Balin's expedition. I don't think he's going to be that useful moving forward. There are better characters. Okay, so now let's talk about Arena. I'm going to show you a mirror match on my main account, but this is when my account has 5-star Elrond, so it should have 7. Yeah, it has 7-star everybody else, and I'm using Brute in my lineup. It's got 5-star Elrond, so this is before the Elrond event returned, and I'm doing a mirror match against an Ironhide composition. I should say that that's pretty much, these are 2 very common compositions that you see. At the very top of, Shard 1 Arena, there are a couple of more meta compositions, so people will swap out Arwen for, say, Eothane, who can give turn meter, who can put provokes on himself, which means more retaliates from Elrahir, and just counter, which means more retaliates from everybody, right? So Eothane is a good option there, but people have also been putting in pretty geared and starred Rummels, who has an extra cleanse, so nothing essentially sticks to your team, but also all of the defensives that turn into regens. Essentially just it's almost like a timeout squad in a sense. They're very, very hard to kill. So that's kind of what's happening at the top end. My guess is you're going to see something kind of like this. And if you're just getting Elrond, maybe your Arwen and your Eladin are 5 stars as well, so don't be afraid to kind of swap in characters that you have that are 7 stars. I do think, essentially, if you have a 5-star Elrond and everybody around him has either 6 or 7 stars, you can take on full 7-star teams. Whether they're Rohan or Isengard or some combination thereof, you could still do that, so it's still worth investing in them to maybe put them in Arena if you want to do that. Let's go through sort of step by step some of the things I tend to do that I think are helpful, and I do win a decent amount. I won't say I'm the god of Arena because I'm not, but there's some things I like to do, some things to consider. So the AI, almost always their first turn with their Elder here, is going to do his special one into your Elrond. That way he applies Expose to your Elrond. He's just putting some damage in there. Gives himself might, right? I like to do this too. I'm not going to do this in this particular video, but I also like to put it into Elrond. And the reason I like to do that is usually because the Elrond was lower stars than everybody else. And that meant I had a higher chance of sticking the Expose. And that's what you actually want, is sticking the Expose. Because when the Expose is out there, the AI on Arwen is going to use their special 2 first turn instead of their special 1. That's important because you kind of get that on cooldown for later. When you then slow the entire team down, she doesn't have her cleanse up, and therefore they just stayed slower a lot longer. In this particular one, I think I put it into Elra here. She is going to give immunity to the most wounded squad member, though, right? Maybe I put it into Arwen. I do put it into Arwen, and then I use... So I put it in... She's going to give immunity to the most wounded squad member. That can be a problem if it is Elrond, because if he extends that immunity, then you might not be able to slow him with your Elrond, with your big wave. So it's just something to consider. You can play around with it, see what works best with you. It's my Arwen's turn. Actually, their Arwen... No, it is my Arwen's turn first. I don't like to cleanse here. What I like to do instead is use my special one on Elra here. The reason I'm doing that is I want to clear the might off of Elra here. And that's because of the next sort of few turns that I have, right? So I clear the might. Their Arwen is going to use their cleanse. Now the Eladins go. You basically are just provoking, getting deadly out possibly if you have that. And then it's the Elrond's turns. There's no reason to really heal here because it's just Elrond that's down on HP. And the AI Elrond is not going to heal because nobody is low enough for that. So what you end up doing is trading basics. This is going to take a stack of Provoke and the Nimble off of their Eladin. But because my Elrond has Expose, he's going to get hit for a little bit more, right? If their Elra here had Might, it's going to be a double whammy. So that's why I like to clear the Might off of that. That way, anytime I'm putting stuff into Eladin to clears Provokes off, I'm just taking less damage overall, if that makes sense, right? Basic, basic. This is the reason you essentially use Ironhide in these setups. You're getting rid of a lot of the boons, and the Rivendell team works on having so many boons, especially Eladin. Eladin needs those boons so that he can continuously use his special 2 and make sure that he keeps his provokes up, and therefore Elra here can keep retaliating, right? That's how the whole sort of setup works. So Ironhide is good at clearing those boons, and then sometimes if you don't get extra boons to Eladin, then he can't get his taunt back up, and you're essentially, the AI is free to target whoever they want, which is most often Arwen and Elrond. Mostly because Elra here ends up under stealth part of the time, but so it's usually Elrond or Arwen. Some retaliates there, and this is why you include Brute in these lineups, because he can apply Expose that first turn. If you're going up against a Brute composition and you end up with like 3 or 4 of your squad members with Expose, I think that is an okay time to use Arwen's Special 2 and Cleanse. I try and save Arwen's Special 2 for when the enemy Elrond does a big wave. That way, I can cleanse right away and I'm not slowed for any amount of time. The reason that we tried to get the enemy Arwen's Special 2 out of the way is for that exact reason. So that when we do wave early, they're slowed for a lot longer than they should be. Get some retaliates there. Just doing a basic into Eladin here so I can get that last stack of Provoke. It's hitting Expose, but that's fine. And now I'm going to go for Elrond. My strategy for these entire mirror matches is always go for Elrond, go for Elrond, go for Elrond. Sometimes, if I feel like somebody is weak enough, I will take them out first. That way, Elrond has to revive them, and then he basically is sort of crippled his heal, his special one, and he can't use it for a while. And I'm able to whittle things down more often than not. Here, I'm going to go for their Elrond. There's a few different sort of circumstances that come up, though, after these first initial set of moves. It's kind of like a chess match, I guess. You have the opening, and then it's basically free-for-all after that. Often, sometimes, you can do enough damage to Elrond that his Nimble from Arwen's passive is going to trigger, in which case, you probably shouldn't use Elrahir's special 2 into that because it's going to miss, right? In that case, often I will go into whoever I'd had the expose on. In this case, that was because Brute applied it to Arwen. Sometimes that ends up on Elrahir, and then I will try and put more damage into them. Sometimes Arwen does not end up going before Elrahir, and so you still have a stack of Provoke on Elodin. In that case, I will just basic into Elodin, and then just kind of wait, biding my times. Special 2 on Elrahir and the special 2 on Arwen are skills that I tend to save for the right moments when I'm doing these matchups. In this case, everything is lined up. No Nimble on Elrond, right? We're kind of in the clear there, and I should be able to do a bunch of damage. Elrahir's special 2, because it hits 4 times, has the capability to break through different levels of Unbreakable. So if he hits really, really hard, he can essentially take out all of the Unbreakables and kill Elrond in one move. It's not going to happen here, but that's good knowledge to have. So then there, Elrahir does the same thing, but he does it into Elodin. And now there Arwen goes. Elodin's special 2 is really good for, one, clearing off Nimble from everybody who's got below 50% health and had Arwen's passive trigger. It's also good for, of course, getting off counterattacks and making sure they're directed at Elodin and not anybody else, and provoke stacks. So that's why it puts provokes on him, gets provoke stacks down. It does a lot of utility. That's why it's very important that you have that, his special 2 maxed out so that he is getting that extra stamina and he can do it basically every turn that he needs to. Their Elodin does basically the same thing. Retaliate's important because it gets rid of that Nimble on their Elodin, although the same thing happened to ours. Okay, this is kind of another situation where you have a choice and things can differ from match to match. If you really feel like you need it, you can heal here. Often my Elrond is pretty low on HP. I found that this is not any longer the case because I have a 7-star Elrond, but definitely when I was having 5-star Elronds, this is pretty normal. I'm kind of in the red, right? I've got my Unbreakable stacks up. One of them has been cleared by Ironhide. Do I heal? Do I do the big wave? And for me, I often almost always choose the big wave. Here I went with heal. We'll see if it pays off. The reason I do the big wave is because it applies slow, and then I can kind of get back on my feet while finishing off Elrond. This is another reason you might want to use Brute. He gives his team might, right? But might, right. I always do that in videos where I say a thing and then I say a thing right after it that just rhymes with it. And then, I don't know, like saying Elrahir here. Anyway, with Brute's special 2, I like to try and get that on Elrond. So that's another reason why you may not want to have immunity on him, or you may not want to do that initial attack into him just because he can't extend the immunity. And now you can land daze on him, and that means the wave he's going to do isn't going to stick as many slows. Here comes the drink. We're good. Unbreakable saves us there. We're doing the same. Okay, so no slows landed on me. 2 slows landed on them. These are 5-star Elronds. That kind of makes sense. You can tell that they're pretty bad shape. My Elrahir is going to go. I'm going to use her special 1. And I basically get to go again. Even though I didn't have 4 buffs, I basically got to go again. I didn't have any slows, so I didn't use it. But typically what I'll do is I'll do that special 2 at that point so I can clear everybody's slows. So I will use her special 1 to clear off Unbreakables, and then basically get my turn back, go again, and then clear off the slows. And then it's pretty much cleanup game from here on out. Sorry if the footage is a little pixelated. I'm not sure exactly why it's doing that, but that's basically the gist of it. Once Elrond's out, it's basically game over. That doesn't mean that like if your Elrond dies, you should quit. I've pulled some things back. So don't do that because you are better than the AI, right? But usually when you get their Elrond out, you can probably press auto after that. It's pretty easy. So let's talk about Chapter 1 of the Mines of Moria raid using Rivendell elves. You can see this is actually footage from when they just fixed the Chapter 1 and the bomber. And so I've got a 6-star Arwen, Eladin, and Lomi, and I'm actually using Lomi in here. 5-star Elrond. Elrond here is obviously 7 stars. I'm doing difficulty 3. This is no longer the case here. So this is footage from a little while ago. I don't do difficulty 3 anymore. I do difficulty 4. Try and get 1,000,000 points. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. That's why I haven't made a video about it. I don't feel like I'm consistently doing better than 900k points. And but when I get 1.5 mil with my team, maybe I feel like I will have done something right and I'll make a video about it then. Until then, I don't, yeah, it just feels like RNG. I use Naramiri now instead of Lomian. And the reason for that, it just feels more consistent, I would say. And when I use Naramiri, there's something to consider with positioning. Basically, she has her cleanse, which cleanses the person with the most banes, right? And so that conditional is important because any skill with a conditional like that, it's still going to apply, let's say in her case, the boons, which is protection and counterattack, regardless if nobody has banes or not. So who does it choose? Well, it usually ends up, I think it pretty much always ends up going to the person that is in what I call the leader slot, which is this slot here. You don't actually need to put your leader there. I thought that was the case for a very long time. It's not the case. You can move your leader over here, and I tend to put Eladin there so that he can get protection and counterattack from Naramiri. That's something to consider moving forward with your elf team, and actually just all your teams in general, is if you have a character that has that sort of conditional skill, but you still want the benefits to go to somebody even if those conditions aren't like met, like the situation I described in Naramiri with no banes on the team, put the character you want those to go to in the middle here. Okay, so this is difficulty 3 and with a 49k power team. So these skills are mostly where I want them, but definitely not the star levels where I want them. So let's just play the footage here. Let's get through the loading screen here. Basically, my goal with Rivendell elves is the same for, like most teams. Trying to deal with the Skull Crusher, especially at the start. So that's the reason I kind of lay into him at the beginning here. I'm going to use Lomi in Special 2 right out of the bat because it gives me a nimble, and then I hope that nobody goes after him initially, and then he can basically dodge the Skull Crusher AoE. What's really nice about the turn order for Rivendell elves is that those 3 will go, right? And then the Skull Crusher is going to go, and then the Bomber is going to go. Only lands up slow on Elrond. You can see Eladin's going to go next, and then Elrond is going to go. So even though often Eladin and Elrond will get slowed, it's okay because they don't spend that much time under slow because it's a 1-turn slow, right? So I'm going to taunt here. And then I'm just going to, I don't think I need to heal. Yeah, so I don't. I don't heal. So I'm just going to start working on the Bomber here and just try to get, at least for this first wave, just get that Skull Crusher out. Something that I think you should be careful of, and maybe not careful, something you got to work around, and part of the stuff you got to deal with in Chapter 1 is dealing with Elrahir retaliating when people attack Eladin. So what I mean by that is, like, if you have the option between getting, like, attacking 2 orcs and one is going to attack Eladin soon and you know he's going to have provoke and one isn't, maybe the best option is to go for the one that isn't, that is going later, because you can get that orc down to a reasonable amount of health, one that's below 50% with Elrahir's retaliate, and not, if you put it into that orc instead of his attack into that orc and then the orc attacks Eladin and then Elrahir retaliates again, you're possibly going to kill him. That happens a lot to me. It was something I really needed to learn. how to basically take advantage of that retaliate. Something to be mindful of, because the best way to get points in this mode is to have the bomber take out the entire orc team. So you don't want to be picking them off one by one. Okay, just laying in here. Boom. Okay, so a lot of teams have this situation where, at least how I play the chapter 1 of the raid, they've cleared out the Skull Crusher and that first bomber, and then the Shadow Seer goes, summons in 2 new orcs, and then the next turn that the Shadow Seer has, he's going to heal, right? And so often with teams that I have that have a lot less damage, I will then again try and get everybody down into the red. That way when the Shadow Seer heals, it stays in the yellow, and we don't go to above 50%. That way the next bomber is going to wipe out the entire squad. So see what I do here. Okay, wiped out the War Drummer, not ideal. Healing there. I saved the wave. Importantly, I saved the wave because I want to have a full sort of 6, and being able to slow them down entirely is pretty good, right? Especially if you've got it maxed out. It's got that +1 slow duration. That's 2 turns. So even when they go into the don't rush me, the bomber can still have slow on him. So that combined with his additional slow from being in that state makes it pretty easy to deal with. So that's especially useful if you've got a bunch of war guards or if you've got a double bomber situation. So I didn't want to use it there. I would probably wipe out some more orcs. And again, like I just talked about, you want to make sure that you keep them alive for as long as possible. So I think I'm just going to put damage into the war guard here and then wait for the bomber to go. Probably going to, that's surprising. I guess it worked out. That's one of those situations. See, now look, war guard is like that. That was a good use of that. War guard is pretty low. Came in. Thankfully, we didn't kill him, but we got these other 2 out, right? Because the Shadow Seer, and then the Shadow Seer healed and brought them up. But Elodin's AoE here, 1 is going to bring people down into the yellow and, get rid of the War Guard. The reason I use the special one again there is just to give myself more turn meter. That way, Arwen is in a good position for when this next wave comes out. Remember, when the bomber kills the orcs, they actually reduce these blue stacks they have in front of them, right? So what do we actually have here? We've got 2 bombers, double bomber situation, Mangler, War Drummer, and 2 Shadow Seers. So not bad. It's not a bad roll. Usually if you get 2 Skull Crushers or multiple Skull Crushers, multiple bombers, multiple War Guards, it's always a dicey situation. One of the ways to deal with, I'm going to keep pausing when I come up with things I need to say. One of the ways to deal with a double bomber situation, Rivendell doesn't have like assist or team up mechanics, right? That can add multiple stacks to the bomber. So one of the ways to deal with that is just to make sure one of the bombers is below 50% HP. Usually the one that has less of these, they're over here stacks, right? And then when this bomber goes, you can pop this bomber first. He's going to kill this bomber. And even if he's in the don't rush me state. That being said, Arwen has a little bit of a kind of utility that you can use, right? Her special 1, especially if you've got enough boons, you can get 2 stacks in very quick succession. So it's kind of like an assist team up, but not really. It's very conditional. It's less useful in that sense. It's still a very useful skill overall. Big AoE. Now's the time to wave. Yep. Send them into the drink. 4 out of 6 is okay. Now I'm trying to decide what to do, but I think the best option here is just to spread the damage out. I'm a little bit concerned because I know I have 2 Shadow Seers, and timing and dealing with a double heal is a lot more dangerous, I should say. It's like harder to guesstimate. But I'm going to do the basic here. Yep, now it's just stacks on the bomber as soon as I can. So Arwen's going to go, and then Lomian should be going. Going to kill some of them, but this Shadow Seer obviously stays alive. I tend to keep the Shadow Seers and the War Drummers alive if I can. Look, then they summon. What do we got here? 2 War Guards, 2 Bombers. Another double bomber situation. I probably am going to... Yeah, I think I'm going to just do special 1 and provoke. Get the Deadly out. Get that going. Okay, went with the heal because there are no Skull Crushers. Just get my regen back. I think I want to take this bomber out because I got 2 war guards, right? Yeah. So now they get both their taunts up. Hopefully Eladin goes next here. And now that the both war guards are activated, I think I can just lay into this war guard just to get enough damage in there. Okay, it doesn't even matter. That's where it's useful because Arwen's going to go real soon again. Boom. Our special one is really killer there. Boom. Okay. War drummer's alive. Another double bomber situation. Not ideal. So I think I'm just going to take out the one with the lower stacks of Don't Rush Me. Yep. And then focus on this guy. I don't think I need to heal. Yep, we're good there. I'm already at 800k. So you can see how it goes fast. One thing that I think is an interesting strategy if you're having trouble with like full waves coming in is you can kind of stagger them, right? So you can like kill off half the orcs with the bomber and then let the other kind of half refill in. That's an option too. I've been trying that out, especially in difficulty 4. Gets to be a little bit harder because they do end up ramping up more stacks of their over here, and especially in difficulty 4, that can be an issue because the Skull Crushers and the Manglers end up hitting so hard. Actually, in the War Guards have this like insane attack that can just like one hit you sometimes. I don't know what the deal is with that, but that's chapter 1 in a nutshell. Relatively easy for Rivendell, honestly. Even though they don't have any team up or like assist mechanics like that, they've got enough sustain and they're pretty fast overall that they can deal with a lot of these situations. They've got 2 AoEs, although one of them is up pretty much never. But I find it to be a lot easier with Naramiri. It is kind of a luck of the draw, as with pretty much all of chapter 1, and kind of what you end up rolling in terms of RNG for the orcs that you get in like your subsequent waves. But pretty easy overall. That's it for chapter 1. Okay, so now let's talk about chapter 2. This is actually from my last raid here. So everybody's 7 stars. I still have a G8 Lomian here. I have a G10 Eladin and G9 Arwen Elra here and Elrond. Skills are pretty max. We're going to go into chapter 2. The whole goal, I think a good score in chapter 2, it's really hard to max out. I think because of the cave troll being so obnoxious, I think a good score is if you can like get to a second topple. And even clearing a second topple is really good. First phase is pretty easy. It's basically get stuff onto Eladin, right? And then focus on damage with Elra here and Lomian. His special one is pretty key, especially after he pops out of Enrage. That way you can reduce momentum stacks. Save the wave until he gets toppled and hope it sticks there. So this is another one of those situations where you could replace Lomian with Naramiri, and then you put Eladin in that leader slot, that first frontal slot, and that way she can use her special one on pretty high cooldown and grant protection and counterattack to Eladin, and then Eladin can inflict weaken on the cave troll. If you have enough stacks to provoke, you feel like, you can just use your basic on Eladin. I do think you should save his special one for, the right time because it can grant deadly. And if it grants deadly to any of these 3, right? If it grants deadly to Lomian, Elra here, and even Arwen, that's going to be a lot of damage. So I think it's good to time that for when either he's down and maybe your slow doesn't stick, like when he's toppled, or just as he pops out of Enrage. I should also mention, I'm showing you just a full team of Rivendell here, but including Lomian, who I think is probably the best in this chapter. I think he's worse in all the other chapters. A lot of people actually will use Legolas lead with Elrond in that team comp, and then I believe it's Eladin, Elra here, and Arwen as well. So, but just with Legolas lead. And what ends up happening is that the speed and basically crit stuff that Legolas can hand out sort of out damage the plus 20% damage you get from having boons on your characters with the Elrond's leadership ability, I believe, right? Something to try. I end up feeling that doing Elrond lead actually is more consistent for me. I don't know if that's because my Legolas is underskilled or understarred. I'm not sure, but I have definitely seen, especially in chapter 2, people break up Rivendell into different squads. I've seen people put Eladin and Elra here in a ranger squad, which does actually pretty well here in chapter 2. And then again, using a Legolas lead with kind of like Lomian, Arwen, Elrond. that sort of thing. There's a lot of mix and match here. So do what feels consistent to you, especially once you grow your roster. If you don't feel like you're at a place where you have enough characters to kind of mix and match like that, it's okay. Just do your Rivendell team. But consider it in the future. Legolas lead is pretty interesting, and if it works for you, then it works for you, right? Something I did incorrectly here for this particular run is using Elrahir's special one right out of the gate. Yes, it's nice when you get that expose landed and you can kind of put a little extra damage into him. I think you should save it because there's no disable on this team, right? And I've started doing this recently for later runs, the one that I actually ended up submitting. He roars on his second turn, so he's going to clear off that expose anyway, unless I guess you get an Elrahir weaken on there and he chooses to clear the weaken because it's only one when he's not enraged. But let's say that's not the case. Save that special one for when after he roars, right? And then you have the expose up for 2 turns, and then you can use his special 2. And with the might going into the expose and the armor shred that's on there, basically, it's going to hit really hard. It's going to be a real meaty hit. So that's just a tip. I didn't do it here, but something to consider. Have enough provoke stacks, so I'm going to continue to weaken him. Getting rid of the momentum there. It's not super important for this phase. It's fine. Yep, provoke. I'm still just saving the wave. What do I want to do? I don't think I need to heal. Oh, I don't save the wave here. I think the idea is, okay, so you can do this and time it, possibly time it. Basically, it's a 2-turn slow when it's maxed, right? If you can hit him with the wave, and that's going to either send him into topple or he's going to be really close to going into topple, it's fine because it's going to last when he goes into topple. Boom, he's toppled, he's slowed. I get it with a War Guard and a Drummer. Because he's slowed, and he's been slowed since the start of his turn here, I feel like I'm just going to take care of the ads. Doing a little extra damage here. Retaliate. Boom. Saving all that for when the enrage hits. I want to save that. Yep. At least I'm mostly consistent with my thinking. Okay. Using the basic on R1 because it does hand out defensives and they don't go away until he gets hit. Using that at the last second here, just so that it's up. Probably could have waited one more. I think I probably could have waited. I'm saving that because he's going to roar right out of enrage. He would clear off the expose if I did land it. I have a bunch of... Okay. Yep. Okay, take him out of topple. He's going to roar. That's fine. This is something I don't understand. Look how many boons. Look how many boons he has. 3, 6. And like... I'm just doing this in the middle of the recording because I need to see. Let's look at Lomian. Let's look at that special one. Plus 5% crit chance per boon on self, right? At max. I think I have it maxed on that on him. If not, I definitely have it at least level 4. So it would be at 7%. So it's either at 7% per boon or 10% per boon. So it's between, so what is that? 10 times 6, 60% crit chance plus the native 10% crit chance, 70% crit chance, pretty much. That crit once. What is going on there? That's like his thing that he's supposed to do here, and he just doesn't do it. Landing the weaken is great. Now's the time to inflict expose. Yep, there we go. Get out the momentum with her special 1. She gets to go again. Put some defensive up. Lomian's great, but no, he's not. He's actually not. I take it back. He's not great. I don't regret the investment, but he's not my favorite. Basically, just chugging away. So I think this second part right here, basically when he pops out of Enrage, is basically what is going to make or break your run. If you get, I would say, over 10 momentum stacks, you're pretty much in danger, because if he roars when he has 10 momentum stacks, that doubles to 20. He's getting that. He's getting a bunch of Enrage stacks, right? And it's just not, it's basically game over, because once he hits you with his rock throw at 25, where you get stunned and reduces your stamina and it slows you and reduces your turn meter, it does all those things, right? You're kind of hosed. He does always do his rock throw after his second roar. You can kind of expect it then. So if you can manage things until then, you're in a good place, either through crits or boon removal or what have you. There's a second roar. This is, again, why Eladin Special 1 being maxed is pretty good, actually. He crit a bunch there, which is good. So we got it at 20, which is still fine. Basically, if you don't get stunned, it's really good, because then all the counterattacks proc, and you can lay a bunch of damage into him. And this retaliate from Elder here, good. But it's important to manage those and make sure that you don't get that 25 stacks. Those are kind of reset conditions, in my opinion. One, he's getting more armor when he gets more enraged, right? And it's just, you're just making it harder on yourself. Okay. We're doing okay. We didn't get Skull Crusher, which is, I think, the biggest thing here. Okay, yep, Special 1. I don't have a slow, though, and that's a big deal. And I don't hit the expose. And do I hit the slow? No. So I got a little unlucky. No expose, no slow. And so I don't think I get this second topple all the way. Yeah. So I think you have to get clear through that second topple, and then that's probably a submit for me. I haven't personally gotten to 900k. Again, like one of the teams I mentioned earlier that can get to 900k is with a Legolas lead. I haven't been able to make that work, but I haven't spent a lot of time trying, but it's worth trying out on your account if you have a pretty juiced up Legolas as well. See if that works for you. But that's basically the name of the game. Controlling the momentum there. If you've got Naramiri, it's easy. Lomian, I don't know, it's hit or miss. I just find that a Special 1 doesn't hit as often as it should, considering the text. I'm not sure what's going on there. Orphan's also good. Yeah. You realize, right, as soon as you get that first sort of rock throw at 25, when he just kind of, right, he gets to 25 momentum stacks, resets, hits you, and then he does the rock throw instantly, and you're stunned. You get all of your stamina reduced, basically. Turn meter, all that sort of stuff. It's essentially game over. He's ramped up from 0 to 100 real fast. And then it's basically a game of how much more damage can I eke out, and is this a good run? And that's basically all I'm doing here. It's not too complicated, gonna be honest. It's all about managing, specifically right after he comes out of Enrage, having Deadly ready to go, having all of your cooldowns ready to go, and just, you know, kind of being prepared in that particular situation, and then getting lucky RNG wise and either landing some debuffs, making sure you crit a bunch and keeping the momentum stacks low. It really helps when you have R1 Special 1 up and you can clear the counters. That way he's not countering as much, building up those momentum stacks, because I think those count for 2 when he's enraged. That's it for Chapter 2, though. So we have Chapter 3 now, and this is also from my most recent raid. I don't know why it says squad power 34k. They're not 34k. I've got 7-star everybody here, and you can see I've replaced Lomian with Naramiri. I think that makes it way more consistent. Even when I had 5-star Elrond, though, I could get 900k with this team every week, pretty much. Anything over 850, I pretty much submit. And like I mentioned, I think earlier in the video, because I'm using Naramiri, I put Eladin in this middle slot here. That way, if there are no Banes and she uses her cleanse, it puts counterattack and protection up on Eladin. That almost never happens in Chapter 3 because there's always Banes, but it's just a good habit to get into. So let's go through the footage here. Skip the loading screen. The key for Chapter 3 and Rivendell Elves lies with Arwen, and secondarily, Elrond's ability to revive. But the immunity that Arwen can give you is really, really key here. And There's a little bit of a secret. It's not so much, it's an open secret. The marked counts as a bane. The capture stacks don't count as a bane. That's important because with Elrond's leadership ability, which hopefully you can get maxed at some point in the near future here, you can extend the boons as long as you don't have any banes on your character. Well, because it's not counting capture stacks as banes, even if she has banes, she could have her immunity extended. And having immunity for multiple turns is the key to success in Chapter 3 of the raid with Rivendell. Actually, pretty much just with any team, right? But that's how you do it with Rivendell. So I think I'm just going to... What am I doing here? Just going for War Drummer. So I think War Drummer is a pretty big priority for Chapter 3. Skull Crushers as well, but War Drummers and Manglers are pretty big priority. Manglers because they give themselves speed up. You can see I've got immunity on Arwen right here, so I'm just kind of letting her take the hits. That's why I didn't taunt with Elladan, because she has the immunity up. Another reason that Naramiri is going to be so good here is because she can give stamina to people on the team. You want your stamina to go pretty much exclusively to Elrond to get his wave or his heal back up, or Arwen to get her special... Actually, yeah, ideally her special 2 back up, but if it goes to her special 1, she can give herself essentially more turn meter and just go ahead, right? So I'm just trying to get everybody down. That slow is crucial. One of the strategies I do have that I often use is I'll use Naramiri's heal at the start. Hope it gives 1 stamina to Elrond, and then I can use his wave right out of the gate. Having them have 2 turn slows is pretty incredible for the, like, you can take a lot more turns, and that just gives you a lot more points when you have a full 6 or 5 people, right? When that is the case, I do try and keep alive. I want to keep alive. Nice. I want to keep alive the people who have slow, because I want them to continue to have slow for as long as possible, right? Instead of killing them all off, I'm going to keep them with slow, and then I'm going to work on the people who don't have it. Going to obviously take out the War Drummer there because Elladan needs to reduce his capture stacks. It's Elladan's turn to take a beating. War Drummers are brutal. Okay. Stuck behind the War Guard, that's fine. And we got immunity on Elladan. And that's ideal because, right, he's the tank. And Arwen can be a little bit squishy, so... And pretty much everybody else. So you do want the immunity on Elladan. And did you notice that? We cleared the capture. Sorry, we cleared the marked. So now he just has capture stacks. So if we taunt here... Nice. 1, I did the special 2, that way I could reduce some of my capture stacks, but now I've got provoke again. They have to hit into me, even though I don't have marked. I still have the most capture stacks, so they would likely hit into me anyway, but that sort of helps to guarantee it for a little while. And I've still got immunity. Wait, did it not get it? Actually, it didn't get... No, it did. It got it. It got extended. So we're golden, right? All I'm doing with Elra here in this chapter is essentially trying to get down people as low as possible. That way, when Elladan does his special 2, he can reduce his capture stacks and take a big chunk of them out. Boom. Stamina to Arwen, stamina to Elrond. That's exactly what you want. I think I'm okay. I think I can just do a basic here. Yep. And boom. And we still have the immunity got extended again. This is basically God roll RNG for this run. This is why I submitted this run. Boom. I think I should probably go for War Drummer here. Yep. And just put another hit into him. There you go. Okay, so now we're in a bit of a situation because he killed somebody and now he has no capture stacks. They're going to choose, they're going to choose whoever they want. So now I do have to provoke again, make sure it goes on to Elladan. Although I think he still has immunity somehow. And maybe it's just hidden. Unclear. This is basically as well as a run can go, so... Yeah, he does still have immunity. Save that because he still has immunity. Oh, man. It got extended like 2-3 turns. That's so insane. Get the provokes back up. Yep. Okay, now we're out of immunity. That's okay because Arwen's special 2 is back up. All right, they go for her again. That's okay. Having maxed out Naramiri is so clutch. Her special 2, right, being such a low cooldown when it's maxed out. Giving the counterattack is pretty okay in this chapter, but not necessary. And then being able, when her heal is maxed out, giving 2 stamina to her Rivendell squad here. Okay, this is game over. I need someone to take a turn. Yeah, 900 points. It's that simple, folks. You just have to have Elodin have his immunity extended for 3 solid turns, and you can get 900k points like that. That's a lot of RNG, right? That's a good run. I didn't show you a bad run, but that is the key, is making sure that Arwen can essentially get out that immunity and get it extended. And the key to that is, 1, having a maxed out leadership ability for Elrond. So free-to-play players, you might be hosed for a little while. But 2, making sure that you clear the marked and other Banes off, because capture stacks don't count as Banes, and therefore he can have his immunity extended by Elrond. That's it for Chapter 3. And now we're on to the Balrog, Chapter 4. Okay, so again, this is for my most recent raid, so I have 7-star everybody, Gear 9+, everybody. I am, again, using Naramiri here, and I know this is a Rivendell deep dive, but, like, Naramiri is just a really good option for the raid, and she is a good option to getting to 7 stars if you got Elrond to 5 stars this last round, and for the next round, you want to get some, him to 7 stars. She's in the guild campaign. She's so much utility. She's so good. Even if you don't include her in your Rivendell team, she can go in so many other places. I really I've been on the Naramiri train since basically the beginning. I think she's really worth it and worth building. However, if you don't have a built Naramiri, or things aren't working super well because they're maybe not as geared as you would like, you can use Lord Balin. I actually ended up doing this with my free-to-play account, where I did Elrond, Elodin, Arwen, and Elra here, and then I used a 3-star level 42 gear tier 4 Lord Balin, and that you can go into difficulty 3 for the Balrog, and I got 400k plus points with, like, not that high of a team. This is not my idea, and it's been around, but Teacher made a really good video about it, and I'm going to put that video in the pinned comment below. You should go check it out if you haven't seen it already. It's incredibly useful. It will instantly boost your Chapter 4 raid score. You did a good job getting that information out to the community. I think it's very valuable. You should go watch that and support him if you can. Not if you can. You should just do it. It's for free, right? Go do that. So Balin's an option here instead of Naramiri. I find it to be more consistent with my main account to use Naramiri, and then because I have Balin upgraded, I use Balin as his own team. Difficulty 3. Okay, you noticed I put Elodin in that leader slot spot. That becomes more important here, because if you do give counterattack and protection to... Yeah, so he's going to get the counterattack there. Boom. We've got all the boons going. Because he gets counterattack, he's going to be able to apply weaken, well, if he beats the resist check. But also, very importantly here, there's sort of a hidden mechanic they don't tell you about for Chapter 4. And that's the way to... Let me pause and say this. You can reduce the flame stacks here with any out-of-turn attack. So counterattacks are good. Assists are good, like with Aemir. Those are incredible. Counterattacks when you get them from Bifur that are applied to dwarves. Obviously, counterattacks from Elrond and Naramiri are incredible here as well. And then the retaliate from Elra here, when somebody hits, somebody with provoke or taunt, that also counts. And it's a really good way to manage the flame stacks for him. That's good, because the shadow form is not fun, but for Rivendell teams, it's actually okay, because Elrond can revive somebody. So whole goal here is just to kind of lay damage into him as quick as possible. You can slow him whenever you want. You don't have to save it up in this particular chapter, right? Just get it out as soon as you can. I'm lucky here and I got that. Still at 10 flame stacks, but hopefully that'll be reduced soon. Great. So ideally what you want is to get him into flinched before he goes into any of those forms. In this particular phase, when he's flinched, I don't know. There's not a lot you should do, right? I guess it is important to note that when he's in that flinch state, if your characters are blind, they can still hit him, but you cannot reduce his flame stacks with out of turn attacks or calls to assist. Those also count as out of turn attacks, right? You can't reduce his flame stacks while he's flinched. And that's because it makes sense. You can't reduce his shadow stacks either while he's flinched, and you reduce shadow stacks by applying Banes. So the whole goal here is just cleanse Naramiri, or cleanse with Naramiri and with Arwen, and just keeping Elra here juiced up so that when he attacks Eladin, you can get a bunch of damage off. Landing the expose is critical. Stamina to Eladin is fine, but stamina to Elrond is great. Stamina to Elrond and Arwen are kind of great. Elra here's all right too, though, because if you can get the expose up more often and then do his special 2 with the might, it's really powerful. Getting deadly up obviously works better too. Oh yeah, see, that's like a full bar. Boom. Look how much damage he just did. Okay, so this is where we're at. Get the deadly. That's a retaliate. It takes off. What would you say that is? 6/8 of a bar. That's massive. Then he does a special 2. That's like 2 full bars. We're okay on, yeah. You have the expose. You might as well, put some damage into it. Now the expose is gone, but with all those retaliates, that's still really helpful. God, her special 1 is so underrated. 2 flinches. You need about 3. 3 and change. 3 and maybe a form thing. Obviously don't do the wave there because he can't get debuffed while he's in that mode. But this team is particularly good at managing his flame stacks and his shadow stacks. 1, because they've got 2 cleanses, right? But 2, they've got a lot of out of turn attacks to deal with the flame stacks. And then the cleanses deal with the shadow stacks, but also you get the expose and weaken, which are helpful. Okay, so now he's going into shadow form. So the deal with shadow form is that he is going to do his 1-hit attack, which it's always 1 hit. I know it's supposed to be 1 hit, like a fatal blow, only if you have this dark hug debuff, the Shadow's Embrace, but it's pretty much 1 hit no matter what. I don't know if it's tuned for glyphs or what. I don't know what the deal is there, if it's a bug. He's always going to do that move, though, on the person with the most Banes, but he still respects Taunt and he still respects Provoke. Okay. Wait, is this the case here? Okay, we cleanse. No, he didn't kill the person with the most Banes. He just went for Eladin anyway. Maybe that was a bug. Well, we lucked out. He's normally supposed to go for the person... He will respect Taunt and Provoke, and he normally goes for the person with the most Banes. Except that time, I guess. One time I have to show it to people. And now it's just a game. Cleanse. And now you're going to heal. Yep. Bring Eladin back. And now you're hoping that you have Naramiri's heal coming up off of cooldown. Give some stamina to Elrond, hopefully again. And then his heal comes back a little bit faster. Boom. Stamina to Elrond. This is kind of exactly what you want to happen. So I've toppled him or crippled him twice. And now I've done 1 shadow form and 1 flame form. I think it's okay to go through the forms like when he's got relatively high HP because he does heal himself for 30%, right? So, but if he's already pretty much at max, then the heal doesn't matter too much. You can kind of get them out of the way, get the points you need to from taking him out of that form. And then you don't feel like you lost a lot of, work on doing damage. Obviously, Elrahir's special 2 is very good for the flame form, but actually Naramiri's basic counts as 2 hits, so don't sleep on that. Get the deadly up, get the provokes, get the cleanse, heal. We need healing bad here, so we're gonna cleanse again. Elrond's got to have a heal up, otherwise we're gonna be toast. There we go. Turns out that it is tuned to the cooldowns of certain teams pretty well. Who would have thought? Naramiri's heal up, boom. Went to Arwen, which is fine. Elrahir is also fine. Okay, we're back in shadow form. I think I kind of mucked this up, and now he's going into forms really fast. He does gain a lot more armor when he's got these 2 enraged stacks up here. It's a little bit different than the cave troll. It's not quite the same. All right, he should respect provoke here. Heal. Yep. Okay, still got provoke. No, yep, don't. You can't land any debuffs on him while he's in this form, so it's not worth it. Even for the might, I don't think. Boom, takes out Eladin. And we're gonna wave him. And then we're gonna heal and bring Eladin back as soon as we can. Save that. Just get the damage into the expose. Boom. Retaliate. And then Elrahir's special 2 here. Doesn't do as much without Eladin alive, but that's okay. Ooh. I probably should have cleansed there because we have ability block on Elrond, but I think it's probably okay because I did think I was maybe going to lose here because I was like, oh no, I messed up at the last second. But I think we pull through just barely. Yeah, just focus on sustain at that point. That's the kind of name of the game with Rivendell in this particular phase. Yes, it's a DPS check, but so much of that DPS comes from Elrahir. You just want to keep him alive, keep damage off of him, and then he'll do the work for you. So, wow, easy 900k, that's how you do it. Like I said, I'm going to put Teacher's video down below in the pinned comment. I think that's a really, really solid strategy. It instantly boosts my raid score on my free-to-play account. You should check it out if you haven't seen it already. But that's it for Chapter 4 and probably the end of this video. I wonder how long this one's going to be. I'm guessing it's going to be 40 to 50 minutes, maybe longer. I hope it's somewhere between 40 and 50 minutes. But like I said, timestamp down below if you need to just sort of navigate around to the part that is relevant. I hope this is somewhat useful. I do wanted to get more into the nitty gritty. It is called a deep dive video, so I guess I can't feel that bad about it. That's all from me. Thanks for watching and take it easy.